The day my parents showed up at my apartment with two suitcases and nowhere else to go, I almost laughed because the son they gave everything to had just thrown them out. For most of my life, I was the backup child. That sounds harsh, but there is no softer way to say it. My older brother Ryan was the center of my parents' world. He got the attention, the money, the praise, the bigger room, the newer car, the private tutoring, and later the down payment on his first house. I got responsibility. Whenever something broke at home, I fixed it. Whenever my mother needed groceries, I went. Whenever my father had a doctor's appointment, I drove him. And whenever I asked for help, they reminded me that Ryan needed it more. Ryan was always under pressure. Ryan was always going somewhere. Ryan was always special. I was just expected to understand. When I was 18, I wanted to go to a college 2 hours away. I had saved some money from part-time jobs, but I needed help with the first semester. My parents told me they couldn't afford it. 2 weeks later, they bought Ryan a car because his old one made him look unprofessional. I still went to college, but I worked nights, skipped meals, and came home on weekends to help around the house. Ryan barely visited, but when he did, my mother cooked his favorite meals, and my father acted like a guest of honor had arrived. The worst part was not even the money. It was the way they made me feel guilty for noticing. Anytime I said something, my mother would get quiet and say, "You know how your brother is." And my father would add, "You are stronger. You can handle more." I hated that sentence, because being strong in my family only meant getting less. Years passed and I built a life on my own. It was not fancy. I rented a small apartment, worked hard, paid my bills, and stopped asking my parents for anything. Ryan, meanwhile, got married, bought a beautiful house, and somehow still needed help. My parents sold a small piece of land they had kept for retirement and gave most of the money to him. They said it was for renovations. Then they helped pay for his wife's business idea. Then they paid off part of his credit card debt. Every time there was a reason. Every time they said it would be the last time. And every time I was expected to smile at family dinners while Ryan acted like he had earned everything himself. Then came the first sign that something was changing. My mother started calling me more often. At first it was small things. She would ask how I was doing, which was unusual enough to make me pause. Then she started asking what my schedule looked like. Then she asked if my apartment building allowed guests to stay overnight. I thought maybe she missed me, but something in her voice felt nervous. One evening I asked, "Is everything okay?" She went quiet for a few seconds and said, "Your father and I are just tired." That was all. But after that call, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. A week later, my father called me from outside a pharmacy. He asked if I could send him some money because his card was not working. My father never asked me for money. I sent it, then asked why Ryan didn't help. He said, "Your brother is busy." That answer hit harder than it should have, because I knew that tone. It was the same tone they used when they were trying to protect Ryan from looking bad. And that was when I started paying closer attention. My mother stopped posting pictures from Ryan's house. She used to post every family dinner, every holiday, every little decoration in his living room, like it was a museum. Suddenly, nothing. When I asked about it, she said they were giving Ryan and his wife space. Then my aunt called me. She asked if my parents were staying with me. I said no. She got quiet. Then she said, "Oh, I thought they might be." My stomach dropped. I asked her what she meant, but she suddenly acted like she had said too much. She told me to call my mother. So I did. My mother didn't answer. My father didn't answer either. For the next 2 hours, I called both of them again and again. No response. Then around 10 p.m., my mother finally texted me, "We are fine, don't worry." That message made me worry more. The next morning, I drove to Ryan's house before work. My parents' car was not in the driveway. That alone was strange because they had been spending most weekends there. But what really caught my eye was the pile of boxes near the side gate. I recognized one of them immediately. It was my mother's sewing box, the same one she had kept for 20 years. I knocked on the door. Ryan's wife opened it. She looked annoyed before I even spoke. I asked where my parents were. She crossed her arms and said, You should ask them. Then she started closing the door. I put my hand out and said, their things are outside. She looked at the boxes and shrugged. That shrug told me more than any answer could have. A few minutes later, Ryan came to the door. He looked angry, but not surprised. I asked him what happened. He said, they were becoming too much. Too much. Those two words stayed in my head. These were the same parents who had drained their savings for him. The same parents who defended him when he ignored calls, missed birthdays, and only showed up when he needed something. And now they were too much. I asked where they were. Ryan said, they said they'd figure it out. I stared at him, waiting for some sign of concern. There was none. Then he said something that changed the way I saw him forever. He said, maybe now you can help for once. For a second, I had no words. Not because I was shocked that he could be selfish. I already knew that. But because he really thought this was my turn to clean up the mess after he had taken everything. I left before I said something I would regret. I found my parents sitting in their car behind a small shopping center. My mother was holding a paper cup of tea with both hands. My father was staring straight ahead, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. When they saw me, my mother started crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just broken. I asked them why they didn't call me. My father said, we didn't want to bother you. I almost laughed then too, but nothing about it felt funny. For years, they had no problem bothering me for rides, repairs, errands, forms, bills, and every uncomfortable job Ryan avoided. But when they were homeless, suddenly they didn't want to bother me. I took them to my apartment. My place was small, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, barely enough space for me. I gave them my bed and slept on the couch. That first night, I heard my mother crying in the room. I wanted to comfort her, but I also wanted to scream, because part of me was sad for them, and another part of me was still that younger version of myself, sitting at the kitchen table, being told there was no money for school while Ryan got another rescue package. The next few days were painful. My parents were polite in a way that made everything worse. They asked before opening the fridge. They folded blankets every morning. My father offered to pay me back for groceries, even though I knew he had almost nothing left. Then one afternoon, while helping them sort paperwork, I found the full damage. Ryan had not only taken money from them, he had convinced them to co-sign a loan. Then another. Then he had used their savings account as backup for one of his business problems. My father tried to explain it like it was just bad timing, but the papers showed something colder. Ryan had been taking from them for years, and they had been hiding it from me because they knew I would see what they refused to admit. They had given him nearly everything. Their savings, their land money, their security, their pride. And when they had nothing useful left to offer, he pushed them out. The main reveal came 3 days later. My mother finally told me they had not left Ryan's house by choice. His wife had told them they were causing tension in the marriage. Ryan agreed. He gave them 1 week to find somewhere else. 1 week. After all those years, after all that money, after every excuse they made for him, he gave them 1 week. I asked my mother what she said when he told her. She looked down and whispered, I said, okay. That answer hurt more than anger would have, because I realized my parents had spent so long treating Ryan like someone above consequences that even when he hurt them, they still did not know how to stand up to him. And then my father looked at me and said, we were wrong about a lot of things. I had waited years to hear something close to that, but when it finally came, it did not fix anything. It just opened every old wound at once. I told them I would help them get stable, but I would not become the child they only valued when Ryan was done using them. My mother cried again. My father nodded like he understood, even if it hurt. I helped them apply for a small senior housing unit. I helped organize their debts. I spoke to a lawyer with them about the loans Ryan had dragged them into. I drove them to appointments, but I stopped dropping my whole life every time they called. For the first time, I set limits. Ryan called me once after that. He was furious. He said I was turning them against him. I told him he did that himself. He said I didn't understand how much pressure he had been under. I said, you had help your whole life. You just called it pressure when people stopped paying for it. He hung up. A month later, my parents moved into a small apartment across town. It was not the life they expected, but it was safe, quiet, theirs. Our relationship is still not perfect. I visit them. I help when I can. Some days we talk like a normal family. Other days, a small comment brings back years of resentment. My mother once told me she missed how close we used to be. I told her we were never close. We were just useful to each other in different ways. That was hard for her to hear. It was hard for me to say, but it needed to be said. Ryan still has the big house, the nice photos, the image of success, but he does not have me cleaning up after him anymore. And my parents no longer have the comfort of pretending he was the child who would take care of them. In the end, I did not abandon them. I just refused to disappear inside the same family pattern that had already cost me too much.